Wi-Fi, Mi-Fi, otherwise. Here we go.
To comment during the Frankly Speaking show, you first need to open the video that is being streamed live. Look for the chat box on the side or bottom of the video player. This is where you can type your message. Click inside the chat box and use your keyboard to type out what you want to say. You can type words, use emojis, or even ask questions. Once you've typed your message, press the enter key on your keyboard or click the send button.
Good day. This is the Frankly Speaking Podcast number 193 for January 18th. The employment data for Jamaica continues to be good, frankly speaking. 3.3% unemployment at the latest outturn. That's practically full employment. Frankly speaking, right in our faces though, and not being talked about as much, is the quality of that employment or the work. It appears more and more people are hustling, including the very visible Higglering or trading, and that mainly in imported goods. We'll get the views of two experts on what this means for Jamaica, and indeed whether the hustling is deepening, frankly speaking. Our guests are host of the Caribbean Business Review, businessman and economist Joseph Cox, and president of the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, and a chartered accountant, Antoinette Hamilton. With me are regular presenters Desmond Richards and Winnie Anderson Brown. Welcome to our viewers. Please remember to click that subscribe button if you have not yet done so. Remember to share the podcast. As ever, we welcome your questions and comments, which you may place at the appropriate section on the channel, as shown to you just a while ago at the top of the program. And yes, you can watch the program again at any time on the YouTube channel. So let's get to it. Welcome, Antoinette Hamilton and Joseph Cox. Mr. Cox. So,
yes, sir.
Where is he? Joseph Cox, right. Mr. Cox, so what should be your attitude to this, what appears to be increased higgling and trading in imported clothes, shoes, haberdashery, and even food like apples and pears and canned products and so on? What should be your attitude?
Well, put it this way: you should be you should be concerned, but concerned to the extent that people are not necessarily gravitating towards the local products. But remember, in terms of employment, remember what the survey asks you. The survey asks whether or not you have been working for at least 1 hour over the prescribed period. It does not make a distinction between whether or not you're looking at underemployment or otherwise. And what I suspect with the amount of informal or what they call own account activity that is going on, which includes the kind of activity you're describing, Franklin, you will find that what will happen is that you'll continue to see over the medium term, if that dynamic doesn't change, you will see over the medium term a reality whereby you're not getting anything but anemic growth. So you get the 1%, the 2% growth, but you will never get that type of quantum leap that really drives development, but because of the kind of activity that you see going on. Because a lot of it,
we're coming right back to you, Joseph. We want to ask Antoinette Hamilton of the MSME Alliance whether we should be concerned about this or that's pretty much or a lot. Ms. Hamilton?
Thank you, Franklin. Yes, we should be concerned. So I share the views of Joseph that there has to be, because we have been having anemic growth, separate apart from the July to September. It was July to September, not July. July to September.
Yes.
Quarter where we had the election
5%.
and there would have been a lot of spending, then that would have caused the economic growth to be outside the normal 1%.
5.1 for that quarter, we were told.
Right. So we should be concerned, but there is hope, because if it is that we have learned from that experience in the July to September quarter, where there is a lot of government spending to drive economic activity so that persons can get meaningful jobs, we need three key factors to be working in our favor: government spending, investment, whether it's foreign direct investment or local investment. So we need incentive to stimulate those, as well as consumption. And consumption comes as a result of the first two. So if the government is proactive in its spending of its capital budget and other budgets, then that can stimulate economic activity so that businesses like ours can employ persons and provide more meaningful opportunities. What you find now is, because the growth is so anemic, persons are not able to find meaningful jobs.
All right, beautiful. My colleagues, you can jump in whenever you like. But Joseph, I've got to come back to you. People have been doing this trading and so on long time, Higglering, and send the children to school or whatever we hear. So should that give us a little comfort to know that all these little people we see running up and down with a little push cart and so on, that we're cool?
No, we're not cool. But then you see two things you need to look at. One, Jamaica, roughly 40%, for things like 40.8%, right? But call it 40% of the economy is absolutely informal. All right, that's one. Two, we have to also take into consideration a basic truth that for the average employee in Jamaica, average, I'm not talking about the people who are earning the hundreds of millions a year, etc. The average employee in Jamaica, do you realize that if you're not careful, they are earning at or just below the U.S. federal minimum wage? So if your wages are that functionally depressed, you are not going to have the kind of spending power to really make any kind of meaningful input into the economy. So you see, the concern, yes, but then what has happened is that people have reduced their effective economic activity to basically match what it is that they're doing. So what you find out for the persons who you would be characterizing as informal, or those pushing, down, doing all sorts of other activities, you will find that there is a functional limit in terms of what is it that they can achieve. Yes, they can survive. I mean, most of us were never part of what they call it, the 21 families, Franklin. So we grew up in humbler circumstances where you just have to make do with what you have. But that does not mean that we're not operating at a suboptimal level. And truthfully, when I look at the labor market, the release that Statin has put out, it shows an increase in the labor market, in the labor force participation rate, which is good. Because it means that more people are seeking to probably transition into the formalized structure. But
Joseph, I want to come to something very quickly.
Sorry.
I want to come to something very quickly along those lines. Your latest program on the Caribbean Review, by the way, an excellent program. You might take the opportunity to tell people how to listen to you or watch you.
I think you're frozen.
That Franklin is frozen. Did you hear the question, Mr. Cox? Did you hear the question? Or is everybody frozen? Franklin is frozen.
I am not frozen, I don't think.
Okay. Before then, no, Franklin was. Franklin, it seems as if he's still frozen. So before he asked the question, he was saying that you could take the opportunity to share how people can listen to your program. So while we
Oh,
sort that out, I think it's a
okay.
good time to do that.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. But the name of my program, well, it's more than a program actually, but the name of my program is the Caribbean Business Review. It is the primary
Okay.
channel for it is on YouTube. So you
Yes.
can look up Caribbean Business Review, or it is CBR 2025 1. All right. But that's what it is. So that's one part of the offering. And next part of the offering is a weekly newsletter known as the Caribbean Financial Dispatch. Well, see there. um, Caribbean Financial Dispatch. And I also
Okay.
put out periodically what is known as the Caribbean Intelligence Notes, where those are more technical type papers where we start to look at various policies and how these things impact on us. But
Great
generally
work,
speaking,
Joseph. Great
yes,
work. But I wanted to ask you, Joseph, that
yes.
there was a Caribbean reset, a
Yes.
strategic
So
reset that was
Franklin,
suggested.
it's still there. So it's still frozen. So let
Yeah.
me let me ask a
Go
question
ahead.
No,
that
So
is on my
Franklin is
Franklin,
not
mind, and I'm
frozen.
not seeing Desmond either. When we
Franklin not frozen.
go
he's
ahead,
back.
Winnie.
He's
I'm
back
there. I'm
now.
there. Yes, go
Yes.
ahead,
You're
Winnie. I'm
back.
not sure why you're not
You're
seeing
back
me.
now,
Yes.
Franklin. Okay, take
Yes.
over.
All right. So
Yes, the
so
question
this
Yes.
I
strategic Caribbean
yes,
reset, Joseph,
I'm
that
just seeing
is
you
spoken
now,
about.
but I
What
couldn't
is
hear
that?
you
Why
earlier.
why is it? Tell us in a very brief
Yes.
way, and without let's just getting complicated. Why is
Yeah.
it that we are on this trajectory where we can't, where we have so much of this sort of low level activity? I think Ms. Hamilton mentioned some things, including investment level, but why we
Well,
have to
what?
live like this?
No, well, all right. I put it in a very simple way. Most of the investment that we have within this region, frankly speaking, is replacement investment. So what we have is that we have been buffeted by all sorts of things with climate change. So you have your roads, your bridges, etc., etc. But if you notice that we keep having to repair them, so the bulk of the investment is in that. That's one. Two, our wage levels have been depressed for so long, and this is a structural challenge. Three, our productivity is low. And four, and perhaps even more importantly nowadays, is that the the overall structural dynamic of the global environment has completely changed. What you find now is that, for example, our principal trading partner, United States, they have embarked on what can only be characterized as a very erratic type of policy frame. So it's very difficult to plan. They're using diplomacy. We have moved away from multilateralism into basically unilateralism. It's not a matter of negotiation and diplomacy on normal footing. It's as if you do what I say or else type of attitude. So what that has done is that it has completely changed the framework in which we operate, and therefore depressed economic activity to a large extent.
Let me ask Miss Hamilton. Miss Hamilton, how do you see the near future, the near term, as you all often say? How do you see the near term in terms of these small businesses, these micro, these, I think people even call them, as you said off air earlier, nano businesses. How do you see that and the Jamaican economy?
Well, in the near term, I would say I'm seeing more entrepreneurship happening. And similar to COVID-19, where that gave birth to a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm also expecting that out of Melissa. Because what you find is that some of the industries are still not yet back on stream. For example, tourism is still just getting back on stream. A lot of other thriving industries would have been negatively affected. So persons are looking at any opportunity to have a secondary income because they now see that they are exposed in terms of their job safety. So what you find is that persons are looking at other opportunities to earn. So persons are looking to go into farming, they're doing cash crops, they're looking to go into other things, beauty industry, because that is a fast growing industry now. So yes,
How
you
do we raise the profitability of these street vendors, the ones who are out there on the roads, how do we raise their profitability, their viability? You're a chartered accountant, I gather. How would you advise that we raise that profitability, viability?
Certainly. So one of the first things that they have to do, they have to kind of get formalized. So first step, open a bank account. It may not be a business bank account as yet, but open even a personal bank account. You channel your funds through that bank account, because credit is one of the ways in which you can reinvest in your business. So if you can get a loan to invest in your farming, invest in your Higglering, to buy more inventory, whatever it is, having a bank account where you channel the funds, after a period of time of banking with the financial institution, they may even grant you credit without you even, when I say grant you, they offer you credit without you even applying. So that in itself presents an opportunity for you to take that money at very low interest rate, to be honest, because there is an industry that is out there that targets nanos, and that is the microfinance industry.
But those rates are low.
Those rates are significantly high. So what you find, if these nano business can transition to the more formal banking sector, where they can get a loan from one of the more established commercial institutions at a cheaper rate, a reducing balance rate, then what you find is that it's less loan burden on them, and they can reinvest in their business. Once you invest in your business, you have the ability to grow, and so you can become more profitable. But if you're just farming to the market, it's just like a revolving thing, as well, using the same example that Joseph gave. It's just like replacing. So you farm, go to the market, spend, farm, go to the market, spend, but you're not expanding. So you're not turning your farming into a big commercial operation. And the way to do that is to access capital.
Joseph Cox, you mentioned earlier about 40% informal. I've been hearing that figure for a long time. Why have we not gone a greater number of businesses into the formal sector? And is that not a lack of governments, that's just present one, the governments over the recent years, to encourage, even to push businesses, small businesses, street businesses, towards the formal sector?
Franklin, I don't know. Well, put it this way. One fundamental truth in life, you can't beat free. Somebody that we ain't paying the taxes now, that you're going to be hard to tell them about going to any formal thing. But the other side of it is that we have in place, and yes, I think the government must be held accountable for this, because it's been going on for decades. The difficulty is the barrier for entry into the formal market. So, for example, when persons want to open a bank account for a company, the banks give them a really, really hard time.
Incredibly hard time. Incredibly hard time.
Exactly. So it becomes a significant barrier to entry. So you go in and they want to open a corporate account, and people are telling them they need to have audited accounts to show, etc., etc. The people, when you do that, the first thing they say is they don't have that. They're just not going to pay.
They're not coming back, and they tell their friends.
They're not coming back. No, but I'm going to tell you, it's worse than you think, because a lot of the people now are opening bank accounts in third countries. So, for example, when they're trading and doing their thing on Amazon and some of these other sites, that's where they're going through. They're going through third countries, because we are actually creating challenges for them at home. So that is one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is in terms of even the tax system. And Antoinette knows this better than I ever could. But the truth of it is that, for example, a sole proprietor, whether they register as a company or not, for tax purposes, you are treated as an individual. So you do not get things like depreciation of assets. You are not allowed to expense any of those things. So the fact of life is that we have to get from in front of ourselves then, and allow the businesses to develop. It's pointless. I mean, you always hear in stories, and of course, I know this would have changed, but there are stories in the past when people went to get register their things, and the next thing they hand them with is a form to say must present the last 6 years income tax returns. or they could get an audit. So in other words, to create these sorts of dynamics that actually discourage people from going forward with it. So you see,
but the people at the small level still though, Joseph, they are contributing to the economy anyway, aren't they?
of course,
Even those walk up and down and sell.
no, of course, because whether or not you're paying income tax, I don't know anybody, and I don't know anybody in this country, frankly, who could escape GCT in some form or some shape or form, because you're buying items where GCT will be brought in on stream. So I don't know, but the sad part of it for me is that, because Antoinette is right, and she raised the issue. I never heard about this nano business before, to be honest with you, but I do know of the extraordinary high rates that a lot of the own account workers and vendors and so on pay, right? And these things are, well, let me not use that phrase, but they're uncomfortably high, and actually they discourage overall economic activity. In terms of the cash flow, they can manage it, but the honest truth of it is that those rates are ridiculous.
Ms. Hamilton, so what are the likely growth areas now, or what are the growth areas that you are seeing in your business from your business part of chartered accounting?
Well, I just want to add to what Joseph said first. So it's a little easier now to open a business bank account. So for a sole trader, it's pretty much just your business certificate and a cash flow projection, which usually they ask like an accountant to do. Range the price for that to open a bank, to register a business, $2,500 as a business name, sole trader, and to get a cash flow projection, maybe $10,000, right? And that's all they need to open a business bank account for.
At most of the commercial banks?
Yes.
Okay.
Antoinette, I think you need to have a word with them, because that is not what they're telling people. Trust me.
The company, though, I will agree with you that the company is first of all, the cost.
He's talking about sole trader, Joseph. She's making a distinction between sole trader.
No, I know, but that's precisely the point, because there's some of them telling people some nonsense that it is unbelievable.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they can reach out to us, the MSME Alliance, and we can guide them as to how to get that process going. But yes, the company is much more expensive. The upfront cost for even just set it up, you're looking at, without your provider fee, $31,500 to get it express. That's a lot for a nano. So yes, just the barriers for that is very high. In terms of how we can, stimulate growth, as I would have been saying before, we need to stimulate the things that drive growth. So capital, in terms of loans, the cost of borrowing, we have to look at that and to see how we can get those rates down. There are incentives. So there's the accelerated capital allowance. But
accelerated what?
Accelerated capital allowance, which is a tax. We can call it probably a tax allowance that businesses get that invest in machinery and equipment, right? So
but not sole traders.
No, man. So that's where I wanted to correct you as well, Joseph. So once you're a registered business, you get the benefits as some of the benefits similar to a company. So when it comes to accounting, if you buy a motor vehicle and you use it for your business, yes, you can get the depreciation. In tax, they call it capital allowance. So yes, you do get the same benefits in some aspect. But what happens is that as a sole trader, you're taxed at a higher tax rate, effective tax rate than a company. So the persons who can register as a company tend to benefit more because there's a less tax burden. While as a sole trader, you pay NIS, NHT, ed tax. And if your income is above a particular level, the income tax threshold, then you also pay PAYE. No, that can be like about 29% thereabout when the effective rate. With a company, that rate is 25% of the profit. And if you earn if your profit is below a particular amount, you don't pay anything. So, and the companies tend to have a lot of other things that they can benefit from, right? So you find that as a sole trader, the tax burden is high. And that is why we have been advocating, I know it wasn't taken up by this administration, that if we can reduce that fear of tax to offer an incentive, say a 2-year tax break for businesses who want to formalize, then I think persons would know that regardless of how much profit I make for the first 2 or 3 years in my operation, I will not be paying any tax. So that in itself will incentivize them to come into the formal system, as opposed to we keep this system that we currently have, which is not working, and they just decide that, look, I will sacrifice not growing my business fast enough and stay in the informal sector.
That's Antoinette Hamilton. There's from the MSME Alliance. And she's a chartered accountant, so this is part of her work. She knows it's part of her work. Desmond, I see you trying to get in. Go ahead, Desmond. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things that we must remember, that the Jamaican economy, hundreds of thousands of people don't benefit or can't access all of these benefits that we are talking about. The other thing about the unemployment, remember, 700,000 people are not included in this unemployment numbers that we are talking about. Now, what we
explain what you mean there, Desmond.
That there are over 700,000 Jamaicans who are not registered. They are not part of the starting data.
No, that's not what I understand. Desmond, that's not what I understand. You're possibly talking about the people who are not looking for work.
Yeah, and that is 700,000.
It's not that they're not captured in certain data, it's that they're not looking for work.
Well,
but you
what I'm
continue.
saying is that there are 700, yes. But the Jamaican economy, these higglers and the small traders that we see all over the place, they are the ones, as Joseph pointed out, they are the informal economy is about 40%, right? Or a little bit over 40%. Now, the informal economy is a significant driver of economic activities in Jamaica. And in that informal community group, there are thousands of Jamaicans who earn their living and are, below I said, earn their living hustling. The other thing we must note, and I heard Joseph pointed to it, that significant numbers of those who are employed in Jamaica are earning just over minimum wage, right? This is a low income economy. And that is why you find people have to be hustling in order to make up.
And some of them, the hustling is all they have, Desmond.
Yes, of course.
Yes. So Antoinette, before we go back to Joseph Cox, I just wanted to ask you.
My question.
Sorry, go ahead with it.
Yes. Yes, my question is this. Do we take into consideration the online businesses? Do we include those? Did you hear my question?
I did.
Can you
Not
hear
sure
me?
what to answer it.
Yes.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we are hearing you, Winnie.
Okay, the online businesses, yes.
I would presume yes. I would think so.
If this is a part of the statistics that we have, yes.
I would think so, because
so there are some people who sells online, for example. So, yeah.
Yes, I would think so, because what you find is that more young people are going into entrepreneurship, and these are the persons that are venturing online, right? Because most of them are more tech savvy. So yes, once they're a registered business and the data is able to capture them in that way, yes, they are included. I'm not sure how, if they're not registered, I'm not sure how Statin capture those informal ones. But I would, once they're registered, yes, they would be captured in the employment data.
And then
Okay.
this is for Joe and you, Mr. Hamilton. How do you measure somebody who is working for an hour or 2 hours? You say that that person is employed?
That's a definition.
It's
That's
a
a bit
definition.
That is why Desmond,
This is
things like
ridiculous.
elections, during elections, that's why the numbers start up, because you pick up the 1 day work, etc., etc. It is what it is.
Joseph,
Yes, but
you are doing a lot of work in the Caribbean, Joseph.
Yes.
Is that the
Yes,
standard
it
they
is.
use as well?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
As
This is
I gather,
international
several
standard.
Caribbean countries use that as a standard.
No man,
Once the
it's
standard is
international
consistent
standard.
from year to year, you have to live with it. But again, I would love to ask, so how do we lift this whole group of people, whole group of small traders, petty traders, vendors on the street side? How do we lift them up? And is there any? I'm not seeing anything intending to lift them up. Miss Hamilton, your organization is not lifting them up. They're not members of your organization. These nano traders.
No, they're not members. And the truth is, to be frank, we don't necessarily have the resources to reach some of them. However, what I do know is that the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, last year they had this program they call the MSME Roadshow, where they go into different communities across the country and they sensitize them on the different services that the government offers and how they can participate in the system. So I think if they carry out more of those in the different parishes, especially the built-up areas, for example, like Linseed, in that area, the Ocho areas, those central areas where these small nano businesses can take 5 minutes or 10 minutes and walk over to where it is being hosted, as opposed to a remote area, which is where they usually have it. I think it can be more effective in reaching some of these persons so that they can have that knowledge, because knowledge is really what they're lacking. If they don't know how to become formalized, the benefits of it, etc., then they're going to be where they are. And let me just say that registering a business doesn't necessarily mean you're going to pay tax. I keep telling people that. So if you don't make a profit, you don't pay tax. And profit is after your income, after you're taking out your expenses, right? So you're not taxed on your revenue. You're taxed on what is left after you take out the expenses for the business. And sometimes that is very minimal, and so sometimes you don't pay tax. So being formalized doesn't necessarily mean that you pay tax, right? There are also a lot of other tax incentives that are available as a company and as an individual that professionals like us would advise you on. So I think, yes, the government can do more in terms of education and sensitization. We are willing to partner with them because, as I said, we do not have the resources to go out into these communities, but we are willing to partner with the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, led by the Honorable Albin Hill, to reach these nano entities so that they can get the information that they need to grow their business. And their
Hamilton, I have to ask you this quick question before I go back to Joseph. Is it not possible that the MSME Alliance could get international grants from those from companies and businesses which promote business and small business? Isn't it possible that you could take on something like that and get a grant, maybe get supported by the Jamaican government, and move these people from the levels where they are at now, from the behaviors and the levels that they are at now?
So I'm happy that you mentioned that, Franklin, because maybe that's the direction that we have to take. Usually what we do, the government would have relationship with like the UN, the IDB, that's the Inter-American Development Bank, DBJ, etc. So we normally rely on them to get those grants and then involve us in the process. However, we may now have to take a different approach to try and seek grant funding ourselves to help, because it's not happening as fast as it should. I may add that even just the response to Hurricane Melissa, businesses have been patient. We have been trying to keep them patient, but now they're getting impatient. You know, they're asking.
Explain that to us. What your members? What were the difficulties that they had? What were the issues they had?
So most of them would have been affected by Melissa. Them would have lost their inventory, their business would have been flooded out. Some would have lost roof, etc. Some would have lost their supply chain, whether it's coffee, whatever it is. And so they would have been looking forward to the government, the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce in particular, to provide support. And of course, we have been communicating that the support is coming. However, it's 3 months now, and they're getting, frustrated with the process. So I'm hoping
I've got to ask you here, Ms. Hamilton. You have a structured reaction, but not reaction. You have a structured position with regard to that. In other words, do you know, for example, of your members, how many, what percentage lost roofs, what percentage lost inventory, what percentage lost utilities, electricity, internet, so that the business was locked down? Do you have that, and have you presented that to the government?
So we have been working closely with the ministry. I mean, we have about 20% of our membership. I think about 32 of our members were affected. We would have submitted that to the ministry. We have been working with the ministry, been in meetings. I know they are working on the process. The last meeting we had, they were, developing the criteria for selection. But when you
Come on, Ms. Hamilton. After 3 months,
3 months.
Ms. Hamilton, tell us what has happened in 3 months.
I think what happened really is that initially everybody was doing their own thing, and they realized all of a sudden that it cannot work like that. And so it's like they're restarting the process.
So you have some small businesses, some micro businesses, so not small, micro, medium businesses and small businesses, that have had losses at the hurricane, are struggling, can't get on their feet, and have not been had any assistance from the government. Is that what you're saying? Diplomatically.
That's what we're saying. So there's grant funding is supposed to be coming their way, but it's taking a little time because, as I said, the process is somewhat restarted, and because of that, it's taking much longer than anticipated, and these businesses, they can't wait. So maybe that is one of the factors that is contributing to the increased presence of igglers and persons just trying to hustle to see if they can, find a way out, because there is the uncertainty about when the government is going to provide assistance in this regard. However, I must say that hopefully we're looking at no later than probably the end of this month into early next month to see some support. If not, I guess you'll be hearing more from me in another forum.
Okay. Joseph Cox?
But Franklin.
Yes.
How does that sound to you?
Before you watch,
Desmond, we're listening to you. We're hearing you. Go ahead.
Yeah, before you go back to Joe, one of the things that I observe, that the system, the international capitalist system, it does not make a lot of room for small businesses. And in explantation economies like Jamaica, that the growth of small business, the state, they have a lot of rhetoric, but in reality, small businesses are not fully accommodated. And you can see right now, because the world that we are living in today is a different world from 25. And what we are looking at right now is a system where the few, they are the ones who are driving and controlling the economic activities, and the few are the ones who are seeking to control the political activities.
Well, Desmond, before I got back to Joseph, I want to respond to that in a way. And by the way, a note from Annalie Bernard, a very informative discussion. He says, keep your comments coming, and we will take those if we can pick up.
Yes.
You know, Desmond, last week there was some discussion in one of that prayer group as well, and there was some discussions about what's happening in America. The freeze, at least indefinite pause on immigrant visa processing and so forth. And two comments came. One came from the Prime Minister. This is why we must fix our own Jamaica. And that's where I am coming from. We have not had the politics in Jamaica to fix things, to do things like that about Jamaica, to make Jamaica better and different. So, for example, and that's why I was asking Joseph, I have been hearing this 40% of the thing informal economy, of the economy is informal for at least 30 years. Now, why doesn't the government approach the same people that run up and down with and try to get into voting and carry all over the place of conferences and groups and so on? Why have we not been able to pull our people who are on the street corners, who are in bus stops, much of which is illegal, by the way, in their activities? Why have we not moved to pull them to a level where they're contributing more to the economy, have more dignity about themselves? And I'm not fussing whether it's capitalism or socialism or whatever. I'm just saying we have the ability to do something about our people like that, Desmond.
Yeah, but
Well,
Franklin, the political directors in Jamaica, they don't have any. Remember, you know, those activities you are talking about are controlled by the economic drivers in the economy, not the government. It's not the government, Franklin. The government in Jamaica and the Caribbean, but I'm dealing with Jamaica. They are in charge of political affairs. The economic affairs is controlled by the private sector.
All right, Joseph, go ahead. Your response, Joseph.
No, well, I mean, in fairness and in truth, over many decades, we have had successive political regimes reaching out and trying to always build up, trying to encourage people to become formalized, etc. Because if for no other reason, just for the common sense thing that when somebody is outside of the formal structure, it becomes much more difficult to be able to formulate policy that actually impacts them in an optimal way. So it's in actually your best interest to try and get people to do it. But
yeah, so why don't we do it then, Joseph?
No,
why don't we do it?
They encourage, but Franklin, what I keep saying
No, man,
to
I
you,
don't see any encouragement at any level that would physically move people to a man from off the corner.
Yes.
Who feels that he everything is just free and just can catch up there. So I don't see it, David. Joseph.
It's a political price that they will pay if they do that. That's the frankly speaking. Because if you look at how the government is even has responded, they have changed the script now, gone to the right process. But initially, how they had responded to Melissa, not to say that everybody don't pay tax. Everybody pays tax because, as Joseph had said earlier, once you buy something at the supermarket that has on GCT, you pay tax. So you're a taxpayer. However, what you find in terms of the response to even helping businesses is the informal sector that they have been helping. So what incentive do they have to formalize?
Very important point, and that informal sector is numbers. Is
yes, it's numbers for politics.
Positions.
Yes,
it's numbers.
Because
I broke into
votes.
Votes.
No, so I would take you even to another level with it, because, for example, with the passage of Hurricane Melissa, where you have a number of people, their communities have been flooded, etc., all sorts of damage. If you think you're bad, right, declare those places no-bill zones, and you'll see what happens after that. Because let me tell you something, part of the challenge that we have, and it's not just Jamaica, it's a regional issue. Try and move somebody out of a constituency, out of a political constituency, or in our case, some political division, and you will see what happens to you. Because this is a very delicate balancing act that goes on. You know? It's a very, very delicate balancing act, but it is real. It's part of the politics of our region.
All
And
right,
just to add one quick statistic for you guys. Jamaica is 40, well, roughly 40%, but across the region, the informality goes up as high as 60%, which is what is Guyana. I thought I would share that with you.
Yeah, thank you. And that must be aimed. They must be aiming at bringing that down with the new oil wealth and all of that.
Yeah, but you say here is the challenge that they face with the wages in Ghana have been so low for so long that if they jack it, but they're having a problem of an emerging oil economy, so the prices of food, etc., are going up. But if they adjust the wages to the extent that the people can actually functionally live and really thrive in that sort of environment, they would force the country into hyperinflation. So what they've had to do is periodically offer some conditional cash transfers. So you have people going around, you get 25,000 cash in one instance. Yes, another one has 100,000 per adult, etc.
They're flooded with money. But so let me just ask you, Joseph, and then Ms. Hamilton, to give us your final words on this segment here.
Sure.
What would your advice be, Joseph, if you were to advise whoever would be required to formulate any policy?
Now, so who like it?
Desmond, we're hearing you, Desmond. Yeah, to formulate any policy in that regard. Joseph? Policy to lift and enhance the growth viability at that level of the nano business.
Try to one, deal frontally with the access to credit, access to finance challenge. Just deal frontally with it. So, for example, those persons who may be offering all sorts of trinkets and other things geared towards the tourist industry, please ensure that they have access to the portable card machines, etc., etc. Because what has been happening in other countries, I'm not sure about here at this point, but what has been happening in other countries is that the cruise ships have been basically keeping the money on shore, keeping the money, but keep the people's money. So they come, they view, but they're not buying anything because they're discouraged from walking with cash for good reason. But the people, by and large, don't have access to the card machines and the electronic payment mechanisms. So treat the access to finance in situation, deal with the issues with registration, remove any any impediments in terms of your tax mechanisms, and basically just basically create that environment through incentives or otherwise, but create that environment that would make people recognize that it is in their actual best interest to formalize and grow. Because if you don't grow, you're stagnating, your business will die. That's just the truth.
Thank you. Ms. Hamilton?
What I will say, formalization is not a trick. So a lot of persons are afraid of a digital space. They think that the government is trying to, digitize and get access to certain things. No. Companies had bank accounts from years back. It never changed how they operate. In fact, it's helped them to build wealth for themselves and their families. So you can't shy away from the banking system. Get formalized. You can go to a professional service provider. You can become a member of the MSME Alliance. You can have access to professionals like myself and others. Our number is 298-3378 in case you want to reach out to us. And we're also on Instagram. And we have a website. So get the information that you need to formalize. One, the government has to look at policies, as I said, that can reach these businesses to educate them, right? Because it's one thing to say formalize. If I don't know what that is, what are you saying to me? So we need the government to use the resources that they have at their disposal to educate the population about the importance of formalization, bring the government services to them on a wider scale, and not just for PR, actually get the critical agencies to come along with them from private sector as well to help to educate them, right? We may have to look at, we have changed government, but I don't know how much we have changed the leadership in some of these institutions. And I think that's...
When you said these institutions, what do you mean?
The government agencies. So we have changed
agencies.
government, but it's somewhat the same leadership. You have probably the same permanent secretaries, the same technical directors. So the mindset, the thinking has not evolved, in my estimation. And maybe
Very
that
important
is
point.
something that we need to look at as well in going forward, because obviously something is not happening. We're just slow with responding, digitization of the government system. And let me just say that the private sector, to Winnie's point, has been responding to Melissa. I must say, being a part of the economic, it was emergency operation committee that was set up by Senator Duncan in collaboration with private sector. The private sector has been responding tremendously to this situation, this hurricane. As businesses, most of the businesses, the support that they have received so far is from the private sector. So we have been leading, in terms of economic growth.
Yeah.
What has been lagging is the government response.
Well, Ms. Hamilton, before you conclude, I have to tell you, we have spoken to different people on this program, various people, including church leaders who have got on the edges of the system, other volunteer groups. We haven't had one person yet. We spoke with what's that other business group? Just above yours, what you moved to? Small Business Association. And they were earlier, maybe a month ago, and everybody has been talking about this limp and slow movement of government and benefits through the government system to people. And also, I've also been talking, not just on the program, but other people out there. And it's amazing that you were even mentioning roughly 20% of your members who got badly affected and are still waiting on benefits, are still waiting to go through all the cobwebs in a poor place like this, where 1 month of lack of operation, one check don't come through can kill your business. And that is where we are.
And the data, Franklin, about the increase, the 50% increase in delinquency for loans in the banking system, that is expected to deteriorate further if the government continues to operate as slowly as it is right now.
All right.
And when I say the private sector, I'm saying the PSOJ, the JMEA, MSME Alliance, SBAJ, and other private individuals. That's what I'm referring to. The EOC, though, was set up by Senator Duncan. So kudos.
What's the EOC?
It's a part of government. So I guess
what's the EOC?
It's the Emergency Operations Committee.
Yes,
So we were. It's a sub. I think with a subsector, I could say, of the National Emergency Operations System. But it's really it's private sector led.
Thank you. We're gonna move very quickly, people, to just some personal stuff which we really want to put on. And Joseph, we wanted you to stay, and Anthony, we wanted to stay to see if you can at least give us a response of video we are hoping to play down in the program. But I just want also to mention again Ms. Hamilton's SBE 2983378. That's the number for MSME. Is that correct, Ms. Hamilton? 2983378. 876, yes. Joseph, I'm sure will try to. Sorry, Joshua, I'm sure will try to put it up in a little while. Well, first, let me just express our condolences to a colleague and friend, Patrick Maitland, who lost his mother, Joyce Maitland, this weekend. She was 93, and Patrick loved her.
Okay.
Patrick, stand strong. Now, I must also say congratulations to Stedman Fuller, Custis of Kingston, and Dr. Claudette
Yes.
Morris.
Yeah.
She's a distinguished educator and public administrator. They will both be conferred with the Honorary Doctor of Education degrees in leadership by the Michael College at their graduation on February 5. It's the college's graduation, Michael University College.
Yes.
Both are former Myconians. And yes, Winnie, I lay claim to Stedman Fuller, who was my batchmate. So I must have some pedigree even by that, Winnie. Yes. Sorry. Joshua's going to show some video now, and we have done a lot of, Joshua's done a lot of work on it. And the point is, we are saying viewer discretion is advised. Not long, the video is just a few seconds, but it's about our fighting children once more. Hope you can see some of that action. Or maybe we overdid it.
Mhm.
Those are schoolgirls. Not sure you can see.
No, we're not seeing. I'm not seeing.
You're not seeing.
Maybe some shadows, but not.
Could you see Antoinette?
No.
I was able to see through the shadows. Yes.
A little at the background. Just quickly, it's a fight between some schoolgirls, somebody trying to get them apart. They're not listening, they're not paying any attention to that. They still keep kicking and so on and so forth. And we have had some of these from time to time come up. We masked that a little bit, possibly too much, because we didn't want to offend anybody and we didn't want to see some finish of the violence. But Ms. Hamilton, from your point of view, what causes this type of behavior among our schoolgirls and our schoolboys or children, really?
Okay. Well, let me just add before I go on, because I don't want Larry to kill me. So Jamaica Chambers of Commerce as well was a part of that EOC. So in terms of that video, though, I would say it's really parenting. I'm a mom of 15 years old, and I can tell you, when they're going through their teenage period, if you're not there, if you're not strict, if you're not careful, they can be easily influenced by their surrounding, their peers, and
There's-
I think as parents, I think it all comes back down to you. You have to observe your child, and just good parenting skills, and ensuring that even if it's a very good school that they're attending, doesn't mean that they don't have bad influence. So I think it's parenting, I think, and a lot of children having parents, a lot of children having children. Yes, so that is also a factor, and the whole stress of life. A lot of things, cost of living going up. We recently saw where the inflation, the consumer price index, which is an indication of inflation. We had health going up, food going up, education was the highest. I don't think the media reported that, but that was the highest. It went up from November to December. It was 8.9%. Food was 7.1%. So the basic needs of a family, food, health, education, and energy in terms of household electricity and gas, those have been going up. So the whole stress of life, as well as I would say parenting, it's probably two factors that are contributing.
David, Joseph, can you give us a quick view on this? Quickly.
Poor parenting, yes. conflict resolution, the absence of structured conflict resolution, basically how to guide young people through that. And truthfully, a lot of those interpersonal interactions, how they deal with that. People tend to be incredibly aggressive, unnecessarily so, and that can sometimes lead to conflict. So the fact of life is that you just have to tackle those things at the root and deal with it in a firm and frank way. But obviously, underlying all of that is good parenting.
Joseph, I'm going to tell you that that's one of the areas we're hopefully coming to next. A gentle and kinder society, which people talk about. We're not gentle or kind now anyway, but at least heading to a gentle and kind society. We're going to talk about that. Winnie and I have had lots of discussions about that, but we're going to put it out there very close. A quick message from Grace McLean says 50% deterioration in debt servicing by debtors helps to show the difficulty that some businesses are facing. Thanks to our viewers and listeners for your time and company. Remember to subscribe to the Frankly Speaking Jamaica YouTube channel. Special thanks to our guests, Joseph Cox, a businessman and economist. He runs a company. I think we told you about that a little bit earlier. Antoinette Hamilton and her company as well. She's a chartered accountant and she runs is president of the MSME Alliance for a year now. Desmond Richards had some difficulties staying with us, and Winnie Anderson Brown. Special thanks to you all and to Joshua Black, our producer and graphic artist. Thanks for your help, Joshua, on this again. On behalf of all of us, I'm Franklin McKnight. Until then.